Hello, my name's Kevin Ellis. I'm a Church in Wales priest on the Llŷn Peninsula, which is in North Wales.
Hello, my name's Tim Buescher. I very nearly was a minister, and still aren't sure whether I should have continued with that idea or not.
Faith and doubt are the ultimate dancing partners. Their dance covers several genres: slow, intense, fast, furious, circles, solitary, but it's always personal. How does the believer dance with doubt? How does the non believer still embrace what they once had? How does a priest, such as I am, dance with both as he or she closes churches and is the last parson in their place? How do you cope when faith dies or regenerates into something else? Standing at the borderlines of faith and doubt, Tim and I invite you to dance with us.
One of life's serial levers. That's how Richard Holloway identifies himself, looking back on the first moments of doubt he experienced as a boy in an Anglican seminary school. He went on to become a doubting bishop and has danced back and forth with faith through. When I first encountered Holloway's memoir, Leaving Alexandria, it was at the suggestion of a fellow group member in response to my profession of doubt in my own life choices. There are many refugees from theological study in this branch of existential care, it turns out. There is a darkness to faith which I found expressed so well in this book. That fear is the mechanism of faith, fear of disappointing. And for this serial lever, this rings in my ears louder than tinnitus.
I share that fear of disappointment. Does the fact that I'm the last incumbent, vicar, parson in a certain places, disappoint myself? Yes, it does. Disappoint others? Or God? Or does no one even notice? Holloway may have thought of himself as redefining faith, but he's no less a guardian of it.
Yes, he sought to follow the faith of Schweitzer for a long time, but claimed he lacked sincerity in its execution. I think perhaps he just held the bar too high for himself. But we have to, don't we? Shouldn't our reach exceed our grasp if we really believe? Should it not hurt?
I agree that faith hurts. Perhaps as the communities of faith dwindle, it hurts even more. It can be argued that having faith is countercultural. Then there is a difference between, say, faith in Jesus, like Schweitzer, or faith in the institution. As a priest, I'm representative of an institution that I struggle with and wrestle against, and also of a wider spirituality. That's why I'm still invited to community events, probably a bit like inviting a great uncle to a family party, for old time's sake.
God did not come to me. I was brought to him as a baby.
I suppose that instigates a particular form of faith. I was brought to God as a baby too. I've always thought of it as akin to a Damascus moment.
Well, that's interesting because the Damascus, my evangelical upbringing, stood for dramatic and sudden awakening, epiphany. My moment of leaving culminated in such an event during a sermon at Easter 1997. I acted then, leaving the church as the preacher spoke, thinking this was the end point of a turbulent relationship. 2 years ago, sitting in the car after I'd arrived at work one morning, the sound of communal psalter sung in a Hebridean kirk transported me to a place of such overwhelming spiritual sadness and loss and hope. It felt like another.
But is it different to when my breath is taken away by the sunset? I suppose the sunset lifts my spirits.
Is God in that sunset? Or in the sound of communal voices? No Damascus moment for me. It was taken as read. I read yesterday that Paul merely swapped one obsessive belief for another. Same path, different direction.
Faith for me develops and changes. I probably believe things now that I didn't believe in my 20s, and now articulate faith in a very different way.
I am happy with doubt, or with wonder without certainty. Does that sound like faith or doubt to you? I briefly tried on my friend's Dawkins flavoured atheism in my early 20s, but it wasn't for me. It's too certain.
If faith and doubt really are siblings, you'd expect them to have commonalities. I suppose I'm content not to be certain.
Listening to Holloway yesterday, he actually expresses the idea that faith and doubt are indeed common cause, and faith and certainty are the opposites. The sure of things we hope for, certain of things we cannot see. It seems a bit too much, a bit strident. The death of faith, for me, was the beginning of something which has led to a more tolerant uncertainty. That is, I believe there are many maybes.
I'm not afraid of dancing with the death of faith. That's surprising for a vicar, I guess. That will strike people as odd. But I believe in the resurrection. Death needs to occur for that to happen.
I'm not sure about a resurrection in body, but I am sure there's something essential and positive in death and its legacy. And alone how to sing describes the essential destruction needed for certain life to flourish.
Interesting. And also the fact that I didn't mention the resurrection of the body. Although I believe in the physicality of the resurrection of Jesus most of the time.
This comment reminds me of another episode from Holloway's memoir. Preparing for Easter and looking for a way to preach the resurrection without saying something of which he was not convinced. It does not seem to me to be Easter and the resurrection which holds the key to so much disagreeableness in some forms of faith. The triumphalism, the positioning of one faith as petty, envious, and murderous, another as brutal and indifferent, and a third as transcendent. Perhaps this is meant to show us the corruption of organized religious power, political and military power, demonstrating an agonized, accepting transcendence in death.
I guess I see Easter differently. I'm a liberal enough to agree with your viewpoint. But for me, there's nothing triumphant about a God washing feet or being incarnate in a corpse. The resurrection filled the disciples with fear. It shattered world order. What you describe is not quite that, but a continuation of something else, but with a Jesus stamp on it.
If I think about how Jeremy Lent demonstrates the devastating consequences of wedding theological thought to industrial empires, faith is swayed by the zeitgeist, shaped by powerful interests. This is without faith there was vacuum, and Ellis Gray.
How would it have been for you if the community of faith had helped you embrace your doubts?
I wonder about that. I prefer an empty church, much as Larkin did. I wonder if you have the same feeling of possibility when the place empties out after a busy Sunday.
I probably do, and I love being in church like you on my own, where people have prayed and been for years and years and years. But so obviously for me, of course, when the church is empty, when worship is on, I wonder whether I've failed on what we're doing.
I approach churches alone for their silences. That's why I prefer the mystic's faith, rejecting surety or conformity.
And perhaps to end with, Jesus himself seems to have been very non-conformist, and yet churches have turned him into Mr. Conformity.